He said the same thing. That's how, let's make some trouble in a good way, right? But that's important for us to ask questions, to be inquiring minds, to be analytical in our assessment, to be critical consumers. But the minute you sit in the presence of people who don't want to think, and someone proffers something, they're looked at in a bad light. Why? Why is that this day?
I think it's people don't like to be told a different opinion sometimes to that which they have themselves. But you're right. I think my strong view is debate and discussion, whether you agree with the other side, is very healthy. Now, the only way you can be more informed about the other person's opinion is to start off by listening to them. You can still disagree, but if you're not even willing to listen to someone, you can't actually know what it is that they're disagreeing with you on or critical of you of. So, yeah, we talked about this, probably 2 months ago, didn't we? The importance of debate, dialogue, and just honest discussion, just being willing to have that sort of discussion, because it is important. And you may not always enjoy listening to something that someone says, but if they are doing it from a place of honesty, in other words, they're not making stuff up, that's a really important thing to bear in mind. Just listening to an alternative viewpoint isn't always healthy if the alternative viewpoint is just making stuff up. That's not a debate, that's just science fiction, and there's no way to have a discussion or an informed discussion if you're making stuff up. But if someone's doing it from a place of honesty, a different interpretation of statistics, a different viewpoint based on historical precedent, then that's perfectly acceptable and frankly to be encouraged. Now, if I were a politician and someone said to me, "Oh, I don't think you're doing the right thing," would I be a bit cross? Sure. I'd get annoyed. I get annoyed when anyone tells me they don't agree with me. But and probably that's why I'll never be a politician, is because once you get to that stage, you probably are the sort of person who says, "Well, I prefer not to hear," and you get angry about it. But it's easy for us sitting back here, I suppose, in a radio studio with, frankly, no decisions that we have to make in that sense. It's easy for us to second guess what it is that people do, but that doesn't mean it's not a healthy conversation to be having and hearing different viewpoints.
I like you saying that, and as you shared, I'm thinking to two professions, economists and lawyers. If you take the lawyer in the courtroom, you have the two sides. Even if it's a criminal matter, but in a civil matter, one is going to put forward a view, another is going to put forward a competing view. And then there is a judge, at least in our system now, a trained lawyer at some point who's been elevated, no pun intended, to the bench. And so after these arguments are put forward, a decision is going to be rendered. Different of opinion based on interpretation of whatever the law and so on. And that's considered healthy, it's considered to be fair, it's acceptable.
Yeah.
Right?
I always used to get in trouble, telling a little anecdote here, but I used to get in trouble is the wrong word, but I always get told off, probably a better word, by my mother when I was growing up, because, to your point, I studied economics, and one uses in economics the phrase, that argument, not to be confrontational, but simply to state a perspective or a viewpoint. And I would always say, "Oh, the argument you're making." So I'm not starting an argument, and I would say, "I'm not suggesting you're starting an argument, Mum. I'm simply saying your perspective." And sometimes people can interpret a phrase that one uses in an unfortunate way. So apologies for all of that. If she'll be listening to this, probably on replay, but I'm sure whether I'll get forgiveness is a different matter.
Well, what I say sometimes it's easier to ask forgiveness and permission, but you are right. In an argument in science, they talk about the hypothesis. Yeah. The notion that you're putting forward a perspective and you're going to sort of defend that. And that's the beauty of economists. What they say, put two economists in a room, you probably get 15 opinions. I mean, on one hand and then on the other hand and then on the other hand. But that's healthy.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. So what's it? Ceteris paribus? That's what I preface everything with. Yeah. If we can keep these things equal, then we can do it. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that you shared that, because during this, and I say this, if it offends some people, well, it's not an apology I'm offering. We were under house arrest. In the Western world, where there's a democracy and freedoms, we were under house arrest. Healthy, otherwise healthy, responsible, civilized, law-abiding people were told, well, you can't do this. And prisoners were being released, right? Because, well, you're being confined. Children can't participate in the graduation from high school, a very significant coming of age, in their lives. But we can stand up outside of big box stores for hours to go in and spend money we don't have, right? To buy items we don't need. Now, where's it? Sometimes you just want to,
Yeah, and I'm always minded by an article, I think it was in February, that was written in The Economist magazine. And the article, I may get the quote slightly wrong, so apologies to the editor, the author and such like. But it basically said something like, there is no way what China is doing in Wuhan will be replicable in the West. It will be democratically impossible. Therefore, how's the West going to deal with this virus? Fast forward barely a month at that point. So we're now middle of March, and the Western world adopted exactly, and in some respects even more stringently in certain countries, exactly the same policies without barely a complaint. And that's an important point to make. There weren't many people who said, this is the wrong policy. There were many people who were frustrated, but not necessarily disagreeing with the policy of locking down. And even though there would have been some people who would have disagreed with the policy, but even though those people would have disagreed with it, they were accepting of the outcome. So there weren't civil riots because of, I can't leave my home. Although, so that to me was a very interesting, almost psychological change in, you've got a democracy which is, in most democracies are based on freedom, freedom to kind of do what you want as long as you don't break some of the rules. And then the rules very quickly changed, and people accepted that change. Now, probably self-interest in the majority of cases, and we can talk about the psychology of that self-interest, which is a really interesting one. But people accepted that, and that's I think probably a credit to in general, the foundation upon which our democracies are built, which is, yes, we all love making fun, poking fun, criticising, teasing politicians and saying they're doing this, that, the other. But fundamentally, they do come from a place of representation, which is they are elected. And if you really didn't like what they were doing, you do get a chance in X number of years to fix that problem. So they come from a place of legitimacy in that sense. Now, that doesn't mean everyone's going to like them, but they do have that sense.
Yeah. And that's what I think helps us to validate the decisions. But as you were sharing, I was thinking that the consistency of the messaging from day one to present across almost all jurisdictions, the chief medical person, the chief political person, and then somebody else in every environment saying the same thing, using words and phrases that normally, from what we understand from the historical perspective, were reserved for wartime efforts. Yeah. So the shelter in place in the U.S. Sort of legislation comes when the threat of a bomb, so stay there to be safe. The quarantine because of some medical outbreak that is threatening health and safety. And yet the willingness for us to follow along, healthy as it may be, the psychological impact, though, to hear some psychologists, psychiatrists, medical practitioners in general share that there's a concern of the conditioning that could transpire. Hopefully it hasn't continued, but the threat to continuing health and safety because people are not seeking their physicians for their regular follow-ups for things that are niggling, and they're ignoring it because they are afraid that if they go out, this boogeyman is going to attack them, as opposed to that pain that has been bothering you. You better get that checked out. You're dead. Oh, well, corona killed you. Yeah. No, dude, heart attack killed you.
Yeah, well, that's right. And I remember having a conversation on one of our morning shows with one of my co-hosts, and she recounted an example of driving along the bypass and seeing somebody on a motorbike with a face mask, so obviously worried about getting the virus, but with no crash helmet. And it's those sorts of absolute, and if you are a motorbike driver and you think that's sensible, you're dumb. There is the probability of dying from a virus is quite small. The probability of dying in a car accident on a motorbike is quite high. If you have an accident and you don't have a helmet on, you're going to have brain damage, and that's not a pleasant thing to experience. So people behaved in quite irrationally ways in certain instances. They said, I'm petrified of this because the messaging has been so strong. The messaging was strong, whether we like or we can disagree with that, but the messaging was very powerful. It was, if you go out, you will die. So stay home. I might be paraphrasing, and people say that's not quite what we said. But the messaging, if you looked on TV, it was stay home, save lives. Now that's kind of the same. Go out and die. I mean, it's the same wording, written a different way. So if you go out, you will die, which obviously did scare a lot of people, and there will be lasting scars from that sort of messaging. And frankly, the messaging wasn't helped by very mixed messages around the world in terms of what proper precautions are. Now, Look, I'm a naturally cynical person at the best of time, but it's not a stretch. And I would love to get an honest viewpoint from our chief medical officer here. Why did we not, for instance, mandate masks here in Cayman, the UK, and the rest of it? Now, they may say we didn't have the evidence. That's just not true. The honest answer, I think, is frankly there weren't enough masks, and people were worried about people robbing hospitals for them. Now, that doesn't make it wrong. But the honesty of the messaging, which is we don't have enough, these will be useful. Make some face cloths at home, do that sort of stuff, would have been a better messaging, because now people aren't wearing masks properly. I don't know who's enforcing this mask rule, but I went to a restaurant at the weekend and hardly anyone was wearing a mask in the waiting staff. So the policy, and that's not just in Cayman, that's the same in the US. I can only speak to experiences I have. But the policy messaging that we did, people have become so psychologically there's been a psychological impact of what does it mean to me? But now it's been going on for so long without a lot of honesty. They were told at the beginning masks were pointless, and now masks are the most important thing you can possibly do. But how do you reconcile those two things? How do you at one point get told, for instance, by Donald Trump, masks are a complete waste of time, and by Boris Johnson in the UK, and then you must wear those things? One of those statements is a lie.
Both can be true, right?
Exactly.
Right.
And there wasn't an honesty in politicians globally about what the importance of it. And then now, if these things are really important, I think the UK fined, 30 people, I read in an article, for not following coronavirus lockdown rules in terms of mask wearing. 30. There's a population of 50 million, and you could see a picture on TV of thousands of people without them. Again, if you're going to have a rule, enforce the rule or don't bother with the rule.
Yeah. And when you have a UK where the fine is, £60 versus Cayman, $3,000, right?
Has anyone been fined in Cayman for it?
Well,
because if they went to a restaurant, if they go to, I can tell them where to go to, whichever restaurant they want to. If they go to a restaurant on Saturday, I can guarantee they can make 20 grand.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that when we come back. We got a break. Let's stay on I call it the north side of Susan instead of the south side. And when we come back, as you say, he's a cynical by nature. He certainly has the industriousness, the discipline, but also the intellect, and he's not shy. So Simon Cordray, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Fidelity Bank would like to thank all essential workers. We salute your efforts and thank you for the sacrifices you've made to keep us all safe. During these challenging times we're facing, our top priority is the health and safety of the communities we serve. And while it's true that things are changing rapidly every day, one thing that will never change is our commitment to giving you the best in sound financial solutions to help you during and after the coronavirus pandemic. At Fidelity Bank, our focus will always be you. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Green Turtle, modern solutions to get you through the new normal. Download the Green Turtle app now and top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination. Home delivery of laptops, tablets, phones, accessories, and iTunes and major online retailer gift cards. And now, home deliveries of groceries and courier service. Guaranteed delivery within 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit their list of products at greenturtle.ky or download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Mommy, have you been taking your medication?
No, I think I forgot to pick it up.
Your doctor prescribed it for a reason, so you should be taking it regularly.
I know, TD. Thanks for the reminder.
If you are elderly or vulnerable and need your prescription delivered to your home, contact the Health Services Authority Pharmacy at 949-8600. Taking your medication when prescribed is important to your health, and your health matters to us. For more information about our pharmacy hours and locations, visit hsa.ky or call 949-8600.
As the community continues to take precautions from COVID-19, it is important to stay prepared for other disasters now that we're in the hurricane season. Here are some post-hurricane safety tips from the Department of Environmental Health. Did you know that you must discard fresh fruits and vegetables, meats, foods in canisters, dented, leaking, or rusting cans after they have come in contact with floodwater? For full guidance on post-hurricane safety tips, visit www.deh.gov.ky.
Talk today. but I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thanks again, Simon Cordray, sitting with us. We got about less than an hour or so, but thank you very much for taking some of your time. Now, for those who don't know, and I think everybody needs to and they should, you're one of the hosts of our Money Sense program. Today is Tuesday, Thursday is coming up. When's the next show?
9 days' time. God, this is
I should do
that. First of all, it was a day of the week test. Now it's a math test. Yes, in 9 days' time. Yes, and actually, I'm thinking about having a debate on that show, discussion on that show with somebody, and talking about what it means if people are going to start working from home more often. Not necessarily from a personal home life. That's for other people to debate. That's not my area of expertise. But what does it mean for the finance industry and the investment industry if people are no longer renting office space? What are those sorts of implications? Yeah. So that's tentatively what we're going to be talking about.
Excellent. And I'm not going to talk at the school, but we can tell you that we've received questions. I mean, Susan can attest. Just even yesterday, we had this passing discussion. Even from the perspective of government collecting work permit fees, let's take it one step further. If you can work from home in Cayman, can you also work from home in some other part of the world, doing work for clients or through offices in Cayman for those clients? The technology allows you to connect to the internet. But as long as you have internet connection, it doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah. Well, there's an even more intriguing narrative that one could put in that, which is why doesn't Cayman open itself up to be a place where people actually do that remote working from, not necessarily operating from here, but using Cayman as a safe base from which to operate a different environment, so that you don't have the same frankly headaches of the work permit process, and these people would be able to work for UK companies, Spanish companies, German, whatever it might be, but operating from what they consider to be a safe, virus-free place, and that would be a very attractive proposition to potentially a lot of people.
So physically based here, renting or buying properties, 7 Mile Beach or wherever, the work permit process isn't a headache, whatever the fee is, but the money is circulating in the economy. I don't know if that we honestly, this is not to disrespect the statistics collection, the analysis. I'm not sure that we know what our money multiplier is in this economy. We've heard a range. I don't know that we know. Maybe we do, right? Honestly. But you imagine someone's based there making 10 grand a week and spending 50,000 a month. I don't know whatever the sum is. It's good for the economy, right?
Oh yeah. Typically, I suppose one looks at the stats when it comes to the economics and says, okay, if there is one person on a work permit, that's a 15,000 fee for government, so that's income for the country, and that is mathematically true. Whether the government then spends that 15,000 efficiently or not, that's not a question I'm going to answer at this particular juncture. We can come to
after
that
next break.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. Once I've recaffeinated, yes. But that person, almost always, I can't imagine a scenario where somebody earns less than their work permit, because that would just be a bit peculiar. And so almost always somebody is going to be spending money. Now, a lot of that leaks out of the economy in terms of imports. So, and we can talk about this as well, the pension money and how much of it's gone to Amazon. But a lot of that leaks out of the economy. But in so doing, people who live here have to pay for rent, have to buy accommodation, have to buy groceries, have to have a social life, which means restaurants. It's all those sorts of things which contribute to your general standard of living. Now, perhaps people only spend 20% of their income on stuff in Cayman, but 20% of someone's income, which is 100,000 plus 20% of that on rental, those are real numbers going into the economy, and as you say, they multiply up, and they have really big impacts on other people's standard of living.
Right. Barbados has an example that we may have read about. There's a call online. Let's join the callers. Oh, the caller has. You answered the caller's questions.
Oh,
yeah, that is like
hung up in frustration.
Yeah, he's talking again. No, that's no. Hey, listen, if you're listening, you want to be a part of the conversation. I say this sincerely. I love to listen to people who offer up a perspective. And as you said, you can challenge that. You can, like some of us, we need to hear it, digest it, go away, research, analyze, and come back and comment. Some of us can do so extemporaneously. Whatever floats your boat and whatever training you have. But from that context,
That's a 7-syllable word you just used there.
Was it?
Extemporaneous. I was just counting that as you said it. I hope this is not a challenge. I have to come up with an 8-syllable one, because I'm not sure I do know any.
Onomatopoeia. No, that's one. But the leadership, I've been hearing a lot as the year started from individuals talking about leadership. What is leadership? The lack of leadership, examples of leadership. And someone said to be constructively critical of our political or economic leadership, that there's a void. And now what we've done to date, we just copy and paste. What we're going to do going forward is going to be the test of what's happening. As you mull that over, a caller has come on the line. Let's go on and join it. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for calling.
Well, this is one of the ill-informed, uninformed, and not too intelligent ones right here.
Sorry, is someone else going to join us? Because it can't be you're talking about. That's not our perspective.
Exactly. I can only talk about me. Like COVID.
Oh, we think.
Mm-hmm. I don't know when we can get off of this thing about the messaging. I'm sorry for the politicians that had to stand there every day and message what they really didn't know. They actually admitted that.
Mm-hmm.
What the scientists themselves still don't know, but in those times they didn't know. They admitted it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I take care of an invalid, and when we were last name alphabetically going out,
mm-hmm.
I went out every day. I went out and did my business on my day, and on the person's day, I did their business.
Mm-hmm.
I went out every day. We can read the signs along the way. We are not so childlike, all of us. The messaging they gave, I took on. Yes, if I go out, I can kill people, and people could kill me. A young man passed me in a door. He pushed his way past, and the cigarette and alcohol was killing me. He breathed down inside of my mask.
Mm.
That will kill people, I believe, if the messaging was right. They did what they could do. And as for civil liberties, I'm a Caymanian. I now had much in the last 3-4 decades anyhow. I could do without them for the time. We need to get away from that. If people know, if we tell children to look right and left before you cross the street, it's for a reason. It's for their own safety. And I look at the COVID in messages, the same way. Look right and left, come up with the best balance that you can for yourself, baby. These are the parameters we are giving you.
Hmm.
And let me address one point you made there. So I agree with what you said there. I'm not criticizing the messaging that was used at the time. What I'm saying is that what we need to realize is the change, and it was the messaging globally has changed dramatically in the last month or so. And what I'm saying is that that's a very difficult thing for people to psychologically get over. So there are many people who are very reluctant still to go out because of the original messaging, even though the messaging's changed. And so I'm trying to sort of draw us into a bit of a discussion about psychology as to, is the way that we have done it globally the right way to change the messaging, or would there have been a different process that one could have got through? Because it's not clear to me that everybody, on the one hand, you've probably got X% of people who are not believing the new messaging, and that's a problem. On the other hand, you've got Y% of people who are saying, well, the new messaging, and so aren't going out. And on the other hand, you've got another percentage of people who are saying, well, the new messaging, I'm just not going to listen to it. Those are the people, to use your story, who aren't wearing masks, who are behaving irresponsibly. So part of the reason for that is because the messaging has changed almost 180 degrees. And that's a really, really difficult psychological thing for human beings to process. Human beings, even today, I still look left and I look right before I cross the road, not because someone tells me every day, but because that was drilled into me for a long period of time. And so if you drill a message into somebody very forcefully every day for a long period of time, people will stick with that message for often quite a long stage of their life. That's all I'm observing. I'm not saying that the messaging was necessarily wrong. There were mistakes globally that were made, but that is simply how do we get from where we were yesterday to where we might want to be in the future.
Can I answer you on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, put it like this. If people think that way, especially in this pandemic, and you've got a plethora of media saying this thing, that thing, and the next thing. And if we can't decipher where we need to be out of all that, I'm hoping not to be mean, but I'm going to say it anyhow. We needed to help those people long before COVID. So thank God for COVID so that these issues can come to fore, that maybe we can help them now. And just like you kind of like leaned in that direction, we needed to help them long after COVID.
Yes, you're right.
We have those people in the society, but you know, we have got to give them a different kind of message too, because the scientists, the health workers, they were saying, "Oh, please come in. Oh, we're going to stop. No, we're going to stop doing this and we're going to stop doing that." I think when the profession understood that people were really going in the wrong direction with the message they were giving, they changed their messaging. They said, you know, keep up your appointments, keep a watch and see how it goes, because we're coming to this. Or don't neglect your emergency situations. Everybody needs to take a step back and look. And just like I say, look right and left there before you cross the street. It's for your own best, for your own health, for your own good. Anyway, I can leave one alone now.
All right. Well, thank you, and always feel welcome to challenge or champion as you wish. But Simon, that we talk about the messaging, for instance, and 6 feet save lives, right? So if I come within 5 feet and 11.5 inches, we won't. 6 feet front and back, but not side to side. The messaging, the WHO. Maybe we can talk about it. Maybe we can also ask about, the doctors and the medical profession, perhaps. But let's get into some of the things, because what was and what will be maybe not one and the same. And now the leadership, the decisions, the financial implications, and the like. Hey, who knows? Who will agree? Who will disagree? Who will actually have a thought process? And we never know. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Green Turtle, modern solutions to get you through the new normal. Download the Green Turtle app now and top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination. Home delivery of laptops, tablets, phones, accessories, and iTunes and major online retailer gift cards. And now, home deliveries of groceries and courier service. Guaranteed delivery within 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit their list of products at greenturtle.ky or download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
The Wharf is your only waterfront breakfast and lunch atmosphere along the shoreline. Starts at 7 a.m. with freshly squeezed juices, hot coffee, and your farm fresh eggs.
The unique sunset happy hour and dinner ambience is your obvious choice for your waterfront dining. See you soon for salsa and boogie nights at the Wharf.
Follow us on Facebook to keep in the loop of all the happenings, and come and join us at the all-day waterfront experience on the 7 Mile Beach.
You've spent a lot of time with your kitchen appliances lately. Did you realize just how old or out of date they really are? If you're thinking of upgrading or replacing your old kitchen appliances, there is only one place to go: Brand Source Home Gallery. They're having a 15% off sale on GE appliances this month. That's right, save 15% off on all GE appliances now through the end of July. You will love the savings and the look of your fresh new appliances from Brand Source Home Gallery in Industrial Park on Dorsey Drive. Call 623-5000 for more information.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. And I say this, any guests, whether in person or on the phone, as we've been doing recently, who take time to share a perspective, I'm very, very grateful, because it's good to have an engaged conversation, difference of opinion. Simon Cordray from our Money Science program sits here in this capacity, and to be able, as you say, to have someone who's willing to say, well, what about this or what about that? It's healthy, even if there are multiple perspectives from the same individual given the circumstance. And I'm again hopeful that these continued discussions will allow more of us to, at least in the presence of the people with whom we feel most comfortable, to have discussion over the dinner table, maybe at night while you're sitting next to your better half. hey, what about this? And Simon, I mean, I have that company with you over the dinner table, but over the talk to the table, we can have the discussions.
It's funny you say that, because I was casting my mind back as you were giving that introduction to something I was introduced to about 2 months ago during the height of the pandemic. And someone, and I'm going to spare their blushes as to who they were, but they know who they are. Someone sent me a YouTube link to a doctor based out of, or a couple of doctors based out of Seattle, and they were talking for about an hour or so about their perspective on viral prevention. And they were sitting there, and it was a very compelling presentation. It was very well articulated, very well presented, and they used some statistics that they had. And the basic argument that they were making was that the human body needs to experience viruses in order to build up antibodies to prevent against, to reduce the risks that human beings face. And I listened to that, and I thought, very compelling. I'm actually persuaded by that. And then a couple of days later, and I was starting to talk to some people about this, and I said, look, what did you think of that? And this had 2 million views. And then someone said something very straightforward to me, and they said, do you think everyone should get AIDS or HIV or hepatitis then? I said, what do you mean? I said, well, those are viruses. Not all viruses can be cured. So you don't actually want to get viruses you can't cure. So it's actually useful to actually prevent viruses you can't cure rather than it is to blindly say. And so these doctors actually had their posting taken down because it medically was poor quality advice. There are certainly, you do want to expose children to colds, you do want to expose them to certain things. But if a virus comes along which actually can't be cured, and it will kill you or it could kill you, that's presumably not something you want exposure to. And so you have to be very careful to be open-minded to different perspectives, because people can be very compelling in an argument they make. And if you don't hear an alternative, it's very easy to be sucked into that debate.
True. And when those people are medical personnel, senior politicians, or other very influential voices.
Yeah, leadership voices.
Leadership voices, right? Whether they're philanthropists or otherwise. But with that in mind, you lead me to consider something. There was, maybe there still is, I'll be honest with you, I've tried to deliberately, very consciously step back from reading or watching as much as I did in relation to this, because everything I was reading or watching seemed to be connected to this, even a little course that I would do. There was a lot of discussion about vaccines. When a vaccine comes, this is going to be the panacea. This is the thing we need, because without that vaccine, words like immunity password, some chip, some ban, something that is going to allow us to conduct commerce, to travel. Now, if this virus or whatever it is, isn't curable, because as those physicians have shared, their video, as you relate, got taken down because of not sound medical advice, how the hell a vaccine going to help?
Well, certainly, I guess the hypothetical is that every human condition has a potential cure if science can find it. Whether science finds it's the next question. It's taken, 25 years to try and find a cure for HIV, and we only have
40 years?
40 years since it was discovered, but in terms of medical spending, and we don't have anything like a cure. We have a lot of preventative measures which can dramatically reduce its symptoms and such like, so you can extend human life. So there are still viruses and other things out there which humanity hasn't solved. I mean, we have no cure for SARS, it just went away. Or MERS, perhaps, I think it was.
Well, you did SARS-CoV-1 in 17 years now, right? The common cold, as common as it is, we don't have anything to do anything with it.
And so there is a conceptual risk that these things are not, in our scientific environment, curable. And there's no 100% guarantee that any medical doctor or researcher will say to you, we will solve this. They will say we have high confidence, and that doesn't mean the same thing as guaranteed by any stretch of the imagination. So we have to be open-minded to that potential risk. And then what does it mean for society in terms of how we live? How do we protect ourselves against these sorts of things? Should we protect ourselves? I think most people would probably argue yes, because if there's no cure, that's a problem. Now, prevention, if you can stop it through a vaccine, that's great. But on the other hand, if you can find therapeutic drugs which actually can take the death rate down from, say, 2% to 0.01%, and it's equivalent to other things that we accept, well, that's probably an acceptable approach. I mean, it's rather like the debate that's had, I'm straying vastly off topic here, but the debate we have, alcohol is legal in this country. It's legal in most other countries, but marijuana isn't. Now, most medical professionals will say one is far less painful and dangerous to you than the other, and the one that's dangerous is alcohol, and yet we legalized alcohol. So we don't have sensible debates about risk rewards of various things. That's what I'm getting at. You can draw many other stories of the same sort of thing.
Right.
We're not being honest with ourselves about the risks sometimes.
Right. And as you shared that, I mean, two things immediately jump to mind. One is the messaging, but let's go to the first one. We understand, when we look at the historical perspective, when we read and watch some of the commentary now, that year after year, and as we go back decades, there have been outbreaks of flus, not just influenza, but it's just the cold, as it were, that killed 100,000 people, was it, in the early 70s, late 60s, in the UK alone, that they documented. But there were no, house arrests as we had, and haven't. We see from, again, the scientists indicate that the risk of death to this thing is 0.0 something, very, very low. Right? Not just it was revised down significantly, but it's low. When we look at 500,000 people, if all the deaths recorded are accurate, there's even questions of that. So that confusion. And then if we would just specifically look at the WHO, the lady physician who in the morning said something, and then by afternoon, her statement was revised, or it's not in keeping with WHO's policy to comment. But here's a physician who's do no harm and giving you science, seemingly is berated for being honest with a message. Now,
I think the probably the most honest assessment that I could give to that is, and I suspect quite a lot of scientists would share this perspective, is that science hasn't kept up with the news cycle, insofar as science takes time to get answers. And what is provisional scientific data is often very different once you do further research. And yet there is a clamour to hear the news. And so in the 1930s, I'm going back to a time before television was widespread, just hypothetically. In the 1930s, for instance, science would have spent a lot longer before publishing anything. And so people wouldn't have had the preliminary data and then wouldn't have drawn conclusions, or the press wouldn't have been able to draw conclusions. Now, I'm not saying what we do today is wrong. I'm simply saying that when information is released by scientists, it's often interpreted at the date it's released as being the gospel truth. Whereas a scientist would absolutely have caveated that in many footnotes, but the press is not reading the footnotes. They're saying, this is the headline information, that must be true, therefore we will go with that.
Right. With that then, two dangers immediately apart. The WHO example, the physician says something, and it would appear that she's being pressured to, almost recant in a sense. Right. And this isn't from one day to the next, this is from 1 hour to the next. And then secondly, when we look at perhaps again the media and the reporting. In the UK, it was earlier reported that the youngest patient died, and quickly thereafter in days they realized, oh no, there was something other that caused underlying conditions. But that was reported. So is that irresponsible? Is that something else? But the void in leadership. Take the head of Dr. Tedros, head of WHO. One legitimately justified in questioning him when he proposed not long prior that someone like to be the goodwill ambassador. I mean, when he put forward the names of individuals as leaders of countries who were accused of atrocities as a goodwill ambassador, when Dr. Fauci is allegedly linked to business interests that could benefit. Are those potential conflicts in and of themselves undermining any credibility?
Well, certainly those who, to the extent those stories are true, and I think most of them aren't, because it's very easy to spread a rumor. It's far easier to spread a fact because most people wouldn't know the facts. but I could make up a rumour about anyone in this room. There's only two of us, but I could make up a rumour, and no one could prove me wrong for a good few hours. But by then, it's been publicised wherever it wants to be, and that's one of the challenges that I think science faces, which is if a scientist is telling you something you don't want to hear, or an economist is telling you something you don't want to hear, it's very easy to go behind their back in a sense and to say something about them which discredits them, as opposed to having an honest discussion about that, because the news media wants to hear a immediate solution, and frankly there is not an immediate solution to a viral pandemic. I think Bill Gates was quoted right at the beginning as saying he thought it would take at least 18 months. Now, he's probably the smartest non-scientist in the room when it comes to understanding this, because he spends a lot of money of his money investing in these projects, and so he knows what the outcome is. And yet we're now hearing politicians saying, no, we will probably have a virus by November, an antivirus by medicine by November, but that's very optimistic based on very preliminary science, and we have to be very mindful of that.
Exactly. All right, with that, let's take a break. I know you've exit in a bit to get back to work, but we'll enjoy the company and the conversation when we come back. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only two species that we have, on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
It is in the best interest of the people of these islands.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. The Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport is reopening registration for the stipend program aimed at assisting Caymanians who worked in the tourism sector and have been displaced due to the COVID-19 border closures. Starting on Wednesday, July 29th, displaced tourism employees who have not yet registered with the Ministry of Tourism can access the registration link at stipend.ourcayman.ky, which outlines the qualification requirements and documentation required. The deadline to apply is Friday, August 7th. In international news, Twitter has banned the U.S. president's eldest son from tweeting for 12 hours. The punishment followed a post by Donald Trump Jr. containing a video discussing the benefits of hydroxychloroquine, despite medical studies that indicate the contrary. Twitter said the post had violated its COVID-19 misinformation rules. Boris Johnson has warned there are signs of a second wave of coronavirus in Europe as he defended a 14-day quarantine on travelers from Spain. The PM said,
for the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Your voice, your choice, your radio.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Very much for joining us, and thanks to Ms. Susan for balancing, the radio, as well as if you're able to simultaneously follow the proceedings in the Legislative Assembly, please do so. Simon Cordray is that other handsome face. Is he other handsome face? Well, I mean,
the camera's only on you at the moment. It's not looking at me, so no one has a clue who you're talking about.
Yeah, there you go. But thanks for joining us. But if I could, and certainly now I want to say again publicly thanks for joining us, but maybe invite you. We now, what's this, July, so I got to remember which month it is. It's almost ending. We've got people presumably who are either considering or have already considered and have made applications for their pension funds to whatever extent that money is going to be. There's going to be an impact because the deadline and the expiry, unless it's extended, in September. So we're going to go into the last quarter with some funds. Will that create a false economy? And what are the implications?
Probably not. That's too glib. Let me give you. There's two answers to that: yes and no. I suppose. Being
the two economists.
Yeah. So let me give you the why. No. Probably not, because most of it will probably be spent in the US.
Overseas.
Yeah.
Certainly. Okay.
Yeah. So most people, I think, will take that money and go and buy something off Amazon or go and buy. And so let me give you an example. The customs border people were reporting record numbers of imports, record amounts of volume, record amounts of value. And that's partly driven by people having money to spend as a result of having got their pension money. Now, that simply means that if someone's received a $50,000 check from their pension and they've gone and spent 30,000 of that on Amazon imports, there's no economic benefit to this island. Yes, there's a little bit of import duty, but no real economic benefit. So that's a negligible impact. On the other hand, yes, there will be people, and this is the reason why this policy was done, and I totally accept why the policy was done. Will be people who were genuinely struggling because they had their business closed down upon them by government decree. And again, not criticising that, but their business was closed down by government decree. And they were struggling and are still struggling because their business is not yet able to open to feed themselves or to pay money to some of their employees who themselves were struggling. Now, those people otherwise would be spending zero, now will have some money and will spend that. So there will be a short-term boost as a result of that. But I suspect that the majority of the money that people will be receiving, someone like myself or a lawyer or an accountant who has a full-time job, who's continued to be paid throughout this crisis and who took their pension money, none of that is going to be invested or spent in Cayman. In fact, I know of many people who have taken it and just simply moved it out of their pension into their brokerage account in the UK, Australia, or the US.
For better returns?
Well, maybe not for better, but simply because they realise the writing's a bit on the wall, because the pension system that exists here is A, not fit for purpose, B, isn't going to deliver a retirement income, and C, means that there's going to have to be some sort of taxation in the future to pay for pensions for people. Now, so that was both answers plus a little digression.
With that, let's join this caller. Or not. All right. Let me then ask then, as she reconnects them up and the like. We understood Honourable Premier to say there's about $500 million come into the economy. Some was questioned, well, do we know how much of that is going to remain in the economy? A few of us speculated that, well, maybe not much. You just almost definitive said, the money's going to come initially, hit the bank accounts, and then it's going to be sent elsewhere, people buying homes in other places. And not just the worker at the lower economic ladder, but the worker up here who's probably pension, you could take 10,000 plus 25%.
Yeah,
right?
Something like that, yeah.
So some people may have got less than 10,000, some people may be getting 100,000.
Yeah.
I don't know the range.
Yeah.
But that begs the question, do we know? And to what extent? Have we monitoring to understand the impact? Is it necessary to know those things?
Yeah. So let's think this one through logically. If you were full-time employed through the crisis and earning a salary, what possible reason could you have for needing your pension other than dissatisfaction with the pension system that exists in Cayman? None. But people that in that scenario took their 25% out of their pension. That simply means that if they've gone and bought, in your scenario, a luxury car, or they've gone and bought a second home somewhere else in the world, that they've probably got less money now in the future for their retirement, which will probably be in Cayman. And it will simply mean that they will be a burden to society if that money, if they've bought a car, certainly that money is wasted in the sense that that car is not valuable in 10 years' time to the extent it is today. It's a very depreciating asset. So if people have bought depreciating assets, then their pension savings have massively depleted, and they will therefore be more of a burden to society. And that was always my biggest criticism, that this was open to everybody, whether you needed it or not. And those people who didn't need it still took it because of various dissatisfaction levels. Whereas what we need to realise is that there is going to be, in 20 years, as a result of this, there will be people who have wasted some of that money and who will come to the government and say, I don't have enough money in my pension. And they wouldn't have had enough money anyway because contribution rates are too low, because expenses are too high, all many other good reasons. But it's going to be even worse. And who around this table, or who listening to this, or who watching this, wishes to see Cayman introduce a 15% income tax in order to pay for those who wasted their pension today? That is what will have to happen.
That's inevitable in your mind? That's going to happen. If you were to put a timeline on that, next 10 years, next 50 years, what do you think?
Next 20 to 30 years. I mean, there is no pension in this island that is fully funded today. Well, sorry, let me start again. They are generally they're defined contribution pension plans, but there is no, so there's no such thing as fully funded, although we all waste money on actuaries proving that, which is in the law. I know I've talked about this before, but the law is a complete shocker. Anyway, there is no pension on this island, whether it be government, private sector, or whatever else it could possibly be, that is actuarially going to give you enough in retirement to allow you to live an adequate retirement level. None whatsoever. Now, if you don't agree with me, that's a shame, but until you provide me statistics which prove me wrong, and I've read some of the actuarial reports, I'm going to stick with my argument. Now, if I'm right, then that means that there will be people who retire who will have inadequate income, and we already have seen that today, where government's having to give grants, and so that number of people will be larger. A larger number of people. Cayman's population 20 years ago was 30,000, so you've got a smaller number of people. 5% of 30,000 is a smaller number than 5% of 60,000, who are going to be relying on government for support. So a large number of people relying on government for support is going to be a problem. Now, unless the government increases taxation in whatever form that takes, it is not going to be able to afford those sorts of things. And that is not scaremongering. That is simple, very, very basic maths. If you have more expenditure than you have income, you have to raise income, and income is taxation. Now, no one wants to pay taxes. We all pay it today. I mean, there's no such thing as a zero tax jurisdiction. Cayman has very high taxes. We all pay 22% import duty, or 25% import duty, or 30% import duty. We all pay business licensing fees. We all pay work permit fees for staff that we employ. So we have taxation here. It's just not as visible to many people, but it will have to become more visible in Cayman unless we do something about this, rather than for the last, I think it's 17 years kicking the can down the road. And every year that ticks by makes the problem worse and worse.
Okay, maybe a discussion I'll ask you now to consider for us to put on the table for another time. But in the vein of what you shared, then two things. The individual down the road who's retiring, I'm of the view that there are some of us who are going to retire, despite our wealth, to another jurisdiction that is cheaper. You shared that they could probably going to all retire here and be a burden to the government. But that wealthier individual may retire to Central South America, to elsewhere, where the income that they have from retirement would allow them to be able to enjoy a certain quality of life. Those who remain here may be on a lower economic stream with the expectation that government will help to sustain them. So if that happens, higher wealth individual moves offshore elsewhere, the lower income stays here. Do you see the growing disparity? It gets worse, right? So if that happens, that taxation rate of 15% now could become 50%.
Sure, yes. You could draw all sorts of hypotheticals, but yes, it would have to go up, yes.
The country's decision by its political leadership, presumably, to do what we did resulted in the significant death of many businesses. That economic cost now is still being on, it's on toll, right? Not just to operate the supplies, the security and the like. But in your view, do businesses have a legitimate claim against the government, as they would probably if they had business continuity insurance? They've had a hurricane interruption, they could draw on that insurance to say, take us through this time. But we've closed not of the decision of management or mismanagement, but of the country's leadership. Can we claim to say, hey, you've caused my business to fail, as struggling as it was, now it's no more, so therefore I can operate?
Yeah, I think in a utopia that would be the case, and that's in essence what happens in the US, Canada, UK, France at the moment, because we have in those countries there's a tax base which allows governments to pay businesses to keep employees employed, and so those businesses are not having to expend their own cash; they're expending government money. That's just not happening in Cayman. I have friends who have businesses that are closed to this day, and who have received no help whatsoever from the government, despite trying to apply for it. I have one friend who has a company, and who was told that because he had dipped into his own personal savings to pay the pension for his staff members, he wasn't eligible for the pension relief. Because you paid on time, you're not eligible, even though you didn't pay from the company money, you used your own so it's those sorts of things that are frustrating. But in essence, no, I don't think. I think the answer to that question is no. No, the government no one has a legitimate claim against the government because it closed businesses down. I think they closed businesses down, from my personal perspective, in good faith, which was trying to stop a pandemic, and that was a fair call.
And why I ask that is that looking now at what may transpire going forward, the notion that we've been accepting globally, or I should say in the Western democracies, the entire populace, as much as we champion freedoms and talk about liberties and all those things, we're willing to, yes, let's do this. We got to do this together, make sense and so on. So thankfully, very civilized, we all try to work together. Now, it may, and perhaps hopefully, I think, given the responsible government we have, we may see an accounting of the 40, 60 million, whatever we've spent so far that's been announced. How that money is itemized, is it that most of it's gone to security and policing? Is it gone to support and subsidize businesses, the corporate welfare? Where is it? But if that has been the case, then are we now looking at a scenario where the inability of the economy to recover, irrespective of the $500 million that we're going to borrow, that's it. Done and dusted. No more.
Yeah, look, there's clearly a non-zero chance of that being the case. But I would put that as a small percentage chance.
Okay.
I think, and I'm gonna give credit where credit's due to a government, which is perhaps slightly surprising. No, I'm kidding. But it's clear that Cayman, either through luck or skill, started this crisis in a good situation with adequate reserves to allow it to get through for a period of time. If the world opens up next year in a more optimistic way, for whatever the reasons might be, maybe there's therapeutics, maybe there's vaccines, maybe there's just, damn it, we have to open up, otherwise no one's going to have jobs, and we suffer and we accept the consequences, then things will change around. So I think the jury's still out, and I think that Cayman's still got probably 6 to 12 more months before it really starts to get tricky for us. And there'll be many people who will suffer in that 6 to 12 months. But Cayman as an island and as an economic unit, I think will be fine in aggregate. But in aggregate doesn't mean that some people aren't suffering very, very badly.
And some more so than others. If I understood, Ms. Susan, we have one call that we can take. Sam, I know you have a few minutes left. Thank you for sharing with us. But let's go to the phones. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, dear.
My friend, how are you today?
Okay. And good afternoon, Mr. Simon.
Afternoon.
So how a question.
Yes, sir.
I think it was the Auditor General a few months ago said that the concessions that the government had given away, that there was nothing to show for it, such as Caymanians being employed at certain places that were built, and for, I would say, the last 15, 20 years now, the government has given away hundreds of millions of dollars worth of concessions. And I have a question. Could that money have been collected by the government and put into a pension fund for the Caymanian people?
Well, really interesting point. And so let me preface what I'm about to say with my starting viewpoint on any concession, any government concession anywhere in the world, is that it's akin to bribery. In other words, you are basically being bribed in some shape or form by a company to give you a better deal, and so now that doesn't mean that concessions can't potentially be useful. But I think my starting point is that they're a terrible thing. Because why should something in a competitive economy, why should some people get a government kickback and other people not? It just seems to be inequitable and unreasonable and inefficient. So as an economist, it makes me angry because it's a very inefficient process. There's no competitive bid. There's no competitive reasoning as to why this is done. But the challenge, of course, is the government or any government at the time will say, well, if we hadn't given them that concession, we wouldn't have had that built. I can't prove that. I can't prove the opposite of that scenario. All I know for a fact is that the concession was given, and that we can calculate the money that would have been collected if indeed the project would have gone ahead, even though the concession didn't exist. So you can quantify that, of course, and if you were to quantify it, that equals a big number. And absolutely, yes, that could have gone into a sovereign wealth type of fund, which would have supported Cayman either in today's climate, helping people through unemployment, or indeed through supporting social security network in the future. But it's impossible to categorically answer that question, simply because we will not be, unless we were to go back and ask, I don't know who it might have been, but developer A, would you have done this without the government concession? Of course they'll say no, but would they actually have done it without? Who really knows? I mean, I built my home without a government concession, and yet big developers need a government concession to build a home. That seems a little bit peculiar, or build a hotel. That seems to me to be akin to sort of bribing people. That's my starting point for concessions.
Yes, because let's just say every Caymanian that retires with $100,000 in their pension.
Yeah, that's called poverty.
Yes.
Because that's $5,000 a year of income. That's $5,000. So if you retire $100,000 of pension assets, that means for your retirement you have $5,000 a year to live on. So that's called poverty.
Okay, and for example, if you retire, Mr. Simon, with $100,000 in your pension, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you collect $2,000 a month out of that to survive while you're retired.
Yep, you'll die in 5 years of starvation.
Yes, so the government has to contribute something for the citizens of this country.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
All right. Hey, thanks for sharing. Simon, I know that you would stay if you didn't have pressing business, but in your closing remarks, I'll ask this question if you wish to, or return another time. There are many jurisdictions that say that we're going to borrow away or spend away out of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Our government has boasted there's $500 million, whether we've drawn on it yet or not, or whatever it is. But in your closing thoughts, if you wish to, should we borrow or try to spend away out of this, especially borrow, in order to get us, through the next hurdle?
Yeah, I'm it's an interesting one. I'm traditionally a big skeptic of government's ability to spend money efficiently. So again, that's my starting point. Again, coming back to the idea of are concessions a good thing? No, and I don't mean that people are bribing government officials. No. I mean it's
economically. I understand what you're saying.
Your starting point is if you're spending money on a concession, it's kind of like a bribery to someone. So I don't want people to misconstrue that. Right? I can say inflammatory words.
Yeah.
But government spending is traditionally inefficient. I mean, there's lots of studies that show that government spend money pretty poorly. And so if we didn't have a pandemic and someone said to me, government's going to borrow $500 million or $1 billion, I'd think, well, that's going to be inefficiently spent. That would be my starting premise. On the other hand, we do have an economic calamity, which is clearly what an economist would call an exogenous factor, which has clearly caused a demand destruction. Again, I'm speaking a bit economics waffle here, but it clearly has caused demand destruction. And it seems to me actually, and this might be slightly controversial, but it seems to me actually the fault I would have with the government, or the criticism I would have of them here in Cayman, is they actually haven't been bold enough. I don't think they've necessarily been adventurous enough. We have lowest possible rates of interest to borrow at, and we're only borrowing $500 million. It seems to me is like, why not go for two? Why not $2 billion? Why not spend more? Because you can actually transform the environment and the landscape we have here in Cayman. I just think my criticism would be they're not being bold enough.
You know what? That's a discussion we should pick up on next time, because I think, and I say this not to disrespect people, but to inquire of the minds and ask them to consider it. The true test of leadership, the example, the demonstration, the acts, going to come, post-September, post a year from now, not what we've done to date.
Yeah.
It is 1-1, over time. And
in 5 years' time, will we look back and say we seized the opportunity as well as we might have seized it, or was it simply business as usual? And I think a lot of countries around the world will look back and say we solved the problem at the time, but oh, I wish we had done this, or oh, I wish we had done that. Couldn't it? And then we'll look at other countries and we'll go, well, don't we wish we had tried what they had tried in terms of being big, bold, and quite obnoxiously big and bold in some respects.
Simon, thank you for your time. I'm looking forward to invite you to join me around the table again at your convenience.
Fabulous, love to.
All right, we're going to pause and take a break. When we come back, it'll be open line. Now, that means that as it stands right now, I'll be in the studio by myself. So 2 things can happen. I can find trouble all by myself, or you can help me to get there. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Fidelity Bank would like to thank all essential workers. We salute your efforts and thank you for the sacrifices you've made to keep us all safe. During these challenging times we're facing, our top priority is the health and safety of the communities we serve. And while it's true that things are changing rapidly every day, one thing that will never change is our commitment to giving you the best and sound financial solutions to help you during and after the coronavirus pandemic. At Fidelity Bank, our focus will always be you. Fidelity, we're good for you.
King Sports Center Art of Fun Summer Camp is back. From July 7th to August 7th. Now, in its 16th year, the Art of Fun Camp is ideal for kids aged 5 through 10 with activities from football, basketball, dodgeball, squash, rock climbing, arts and craft dance, singing, and more. Your child can stay cool while having fun in a safe and secure environment. For more info, email kings.brebanks@gmail.com. That's kings.brebanks@gmail.com or call 946-KING. Like King Sports Center on Facebook, and you can also find them on Instagram or call 946-5464. King Sports Center, providing you with all your fitness, recreation, and relaxation needs.
The Tuesday and Thursday edition of The Business Buzz is brought to you by K-Man Medical Supplies, providing quality pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, and consumer products to healthcare providers, retailers, and ultimately the patients at a reasonable rate in a friendly, caring, and timely manner. K-Man Medical Supplies is located at number 93 Smith Road, Windward Center. Telephone 949-6211.
This is an important public service announcement. The Standards in Public Life Law has commenced, and all persons subject to the law are required to file a declaration of interest by this coming Thursday, 30th of July, 2020. To determine if you are required under the law to declare your interest, visit www.standardsinpubliclifecommission.ky. Again, the deadline for persons to submit their declaration of interest in accordance with the Standards in Public Life Law is this coming Thursday, the 30th of July, 2020.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you for joining us. You know what Miss Susan says? Well, most of it I can repeat, but I won't. She says, give us a call and share your thoughts with us. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. Very, very grateful, and I say this with the greatest of respect. That's my intent, and hopefully that's how it's conveyed. If you are able to accept an invitation to join us as a guest, whether in person, as we resume, back to sitting across the table, even enduring the cameras, remember, when you're watching us on YouTube, you're listening to a radio show that's happened to, you can also see the host and the guest. It's radio on video. It's a radio show. I can honestly tell you that video messaging conveys a whole different imagery. Because of it, I could and should pay attention to what you wear and how you move your body language. So if you see me looking at a guest and writing a note, it's what I don't forget. But don't read into it other than the fact that he is still trying to be attentive. Other than that, really don't really matter. What I want to hear is you dialing the numbers and calling and saying, you know what you guys just said makes sense? Nope, it doesn't make any sense. Well, whichever as it is. Again, thanks to all of our guests who join us. We had one of the hosts from One Sense, Mr. Simon Cordray, sharing a perspective. Very, very grateful to that. We can continue, commenting on what was shared. We can talk about other things. We saw earlier a demonstration, as we understood, legitimately sanctioned by the police in terms of getting the records with authority in front of one of the pension administrators, people showing a healthy exercise of their democracy. One individual asks the question, well, why should people have to get permission to go and protest? Well, maybe you can ask that question if someone get an answer. Maybe you can offer up an answer. 1-800-534-8255. Let's go to our phones. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
Very blessed and thankful. How about yourself?
I'm always blessed.
Amen. Amen. That, never forget that.
Blessed.
Never forget
today, that. That's right. God is good, eh?
Amen.
Amen. But today I'm a little bit perplexed, Dwayne. I think perhaps because I understand something about public consultation and the value of public consultation in directing the country forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wanna put the nature of the topic aside for a moment, because public consultation doesn't particularly apply to one single type of topic or one category of concern, but it's applicable whenever the government deems it fit to invite public input on a topic. But especially, it is advised to happen even by the consultative principles that were set out by Westminster Parliament. I wrote a letter to the Portfolio of Legal Affairs and therefore, by extension, to the honourable members of the House on the current domestic partnership bill that's being debated in the House, right? And in there I mentioned some of the consultative principles that was included in that directive from Parliament. I also, and I will gladly provide you a copy of that letter, so you know when I'm saying this now, so what I'm saying actually is true,
yes,
right?
Yes,
but I have a bit of concern about comments that was made today in the Legislative Assembly by the elected representative from Prospect. And he said he had received 630 responses to his from his constituents. And I putting this on the air because I want to say that I made a public request for evidence of those 630 responses, simply because it is a matter that affects me, and he made it a public record, right? Because I saw a correspondence from him that said, essentially, I'm going to paraphrase this a bit. Hey guys, I'm all caught up in the Public Accounts Committee. I don't have time to consult with you. Here's the domestic partnership bill. Let me have your opinion on it. But today he went back to the House. In the House, he said that the bill was so complicated they had to call for the assistance of the Attorney General. If you got 630 responses, of which it was basically half and half was his elucidation. And you sent this bill out by WhatsApp to your constituents. How much did they really understand? And what type of response were you really, truly getting when you as a lawmaker needed the assistance of the Attorney General? Now, maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe he has in his constituency persons of the highest intellectual caliber and legal understanding in the entire country, who are also a constituency of technological individuals who were able to receive the message by WhatsApp, access it online, whether they read it on their phones or whether they read it on their laptops. It doesn't matter, but it would show that they were technologically inclined. Maybe it is for those two reasons that he was able to have such a high result from that effort. But I do intend to write about it, Dream, because listening to much of the debate in the Legislative Assembly, I don't think that the public is hearing the truth. It is one of the reasons why I push for public debate on the why I pushed for public consultation in town hall meetings was to remove the opportunity from elected representatives of being able to say, well, my constituents say, and to be able to say so and be unchallenged in it because there would be nothing that evidence their constitution, their constituent contribution.
Right. But as I listen to you, sending out extracts, even if you do it section by section, so you've taken a piece of proposed legislation, in this case the Domestic Partnerships Bill, and you say, okay, here is sections 1 through 10, for instance, and you copy and paste it, send it electronically verbatim. That is good. But if there is no critique and analysis, well, this section means this and this allows you to do or not do and it affects you in this way, then it is that really helping people to understand the implications and ramifications of the proposed legislation?
No, and when people, if you ask the average individual in this country, I have taken that upon myself to ask people, do you know what the Domestic Partnership Bill is? They think that it is something that aids domestic relationships that are abusive. That is their consensus of the Domestic Partnership Bill, is that it somehow helps to remedy domestic abuse.
So because of the name, perhaps?
Because of the name.
Okay.
Now, if you don't have an identification of the bill, and if you don't have a definition of the bill, how can people support something that they do not understand?
Okay. So.
And, sorry.
Yeah. But as you share now, and you, I take it that you're able to follow the proceedings as much as possible thus far. I mean, I know it's being broadcast on our sister station, Breeze FM. Has there been a vote? Has any member indicated whether how and to what extent he or she is going to vote?
Some members have. I spent my day for the greatest part of it yesterday at the Legislative Assembly, and I followed along as best as I could via YouTube for the first half of the day today. Some members have expressed a definite yes for supporting the bill. Now, in doing so, I am so dismayed at the cowardice of my elected representatives as a country. And I say that unapologetically. Because when you wave a threat over my head, and you tell me I elected you in good faith to make the best decisions for the country, yes. But I elected you in a partnership. It's called democracy. So when we start looking, or when you identify potential threats to my freedoms, you're supposed to come and have a discussion with me. When we're looking at things such as, oh, well, England will unequivocally enforce same-sex marriage on us if we don't pass the Domestic Partnership Bill, we need to talk about England's ability to do so, because it has made promises and it has clearly confirmed its position regarding marriage in overseas territories. They have no interest in imposing it, so now why are we being threatened with it? Now, if you are pushing me into a situation where, through fair, you are placing me where I have to choose my family over the Queen, should we be having a bit more of a discussion over this? If you're forcing me to accept my finances over the Queen, shouldn't we be having a discussion about this? Now, if the threat is, or we would have to choose independence, shouldn't we have a discussion about it? Now, speaking about independence, there are persons in this country who say, no, we can't go independent. You say, and why is that? And they haven't the faintest idea. All they are doing is reverberating the fear that has been expressed to them by somebody that they have trusted and they heard at some previous point in their life. But they haven't the faintest idea why we should or why we shouldn't go independent. Now listen, I'm not advocating that we should. I'm saying let's have the discussion. Let's have the discussion so as a nation we can help to decide to make the decisions about whether or not we want to remain a British overseas dependent territory or whether or not we want to take the risk to go independent. We don't know if we are able to because we have never had the discussion. And I think to be passing a law that the majority of the public has for many years resisted because of the threat of England imposing it is the greatest act of cowardice that I have ever witnessed. You're afraid to stand from a constitution that is codified because you are afraid that England might. And that is leadership. Oh, goodness, that is so far off from what leadership looks like. But you know, and they would do well to remember people like Samuel Adams and Thomas Jefferson and what really happened with the Declaration of Independence and the many other brave people, leaders in our past that helped to build countries, and how they, regardless of what it was that was in front of them, they said, listen, let's make the most of this opportunity, right? So if you're talking about we want the living change is a certainty, and we have to embrace change. Then let us embrace change bravely as a nation, being fully informed, having contributed, having consulted. Sorry, one moment for me.
All right. But as we listen to the caller, we certainly invite others to share either on the proceedings of the Legislative Assembly or on any other topics. One of the beautiful, healthy things about our democracy, and especially ours, is the freedoms with which we can engage publicly. Now, Ms. Katina, I know you're busy. You want to take a short break and collect the thoughts and rejoin us, or you have to press on?
I'm going to have to bid you all good day.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I have two other persons who are waiting on me for
sense
lunch.
I sense that.
Yeah.
Get some cassava cake if you can.
They don't have none here. Come bring some for me.
Let me see if I can arrange that. But thank you for listening and giving us your perspective, and hopefully others will take the example to at least follow the proceedings of our Legislative Assembly. We make it so easy. I mean, Breeze FM is carrying it. We have CIG TV, it's being broadcast in many forms. We can take it portable, by way of audio as we listen to a radio, or we can watch the MLAs as they make their contribution. So we have many ways in which to be engaged. But thank you very much for sharing with us, all right?
Sorry, Dwayne, I also want to add to that, that the Legislative Assembly is open to the public, but you have to practice the social distancing protocol.
Yeah, man. I mean, come next election, we can practice that even more. Let's behave. You know what? If you can't listen, let's have some fun. Thank you, Ms. Katina.
Have a great afternoon.
You too,
God bless you. God bless you.
Amen. Let's pause and take a break. You know what? They say short people have the most fun because everything is looking up to them. But anyway, when we come back from the break, join us. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Green Turtle, modern solutions to get you through the new normal. Download the Green Turtle app now and top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination. Home delivery of laptops, tablets, phones, accessories, and iTunes and major online retailer gift cards. And now, home deliveries of groceries and courier service. Guaranteed delivery within 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit their list of products at greenturtle.ky or download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. We are a not-for-profit, member-centric plan with a democratically elected volunteer board of trustees representing all sectors of the Cayman Islands economy. We have an all-in expense ratio of less than 1%, over 20,000 members, and $490 million in assets under management. We were the first multi-employer pension plan approved by the regulator in the late 1990s, and today we are still strong, secure, and are here for our employees and employers alike. If you would like to join or require further information, visit chamberpension.ky. And for information as it happens, follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Email admin@pensions.ky or call 745-7630. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you.
This coming Saturday, August 1st, tune in to CIG TV at 4 p.m. for a virtual concert showcasing the gold and silver medalists from the 2020 National Cultural Festival of the Arts. presented by the Department of Education Services. Witness performances from some of Cayman's most exceptional young talent in music, dance, and the spoken word. Follow them at Education Cayman on Instagram and Facebook for updates. Tune in to CIG TV or log on to CIG TV YouTube on Saturday, August 1st at 4 p.m. for the 2020 National Cultural Festival of the Arts Showcase.
Water Authority Cayman wishes to advise its valued customers of planned works to upgrade the water supply infrastructure along Elgin Avenue between the junctions of Elgin Avenue, Hospital Road and Elgin Avenue, Shedden Road. Work will begin Monday, June 22nd and will continue for 6 weeks. Customers in the area may experience water service interruptions during this period. However, as much notice as possible will be provided before the interruption. To facilitate the work, sections of Elgin Avenue will be closed to the motoring public between 6:30 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. with local access permitted.
Fidelity Bank would like to thank all essential workers. We salute your efforts and thank you for the sacrifices you've made to keep us all safe. During these challenging times we're facing, our top priority is the health and safety of the communities we serve. And while it's true that things are changing rapidly every day, one thing that will never change is our commitment to giving you the best in sound financial solutions to help you during and after the coronavirus pandemic. At Fidelity Bank, our focus will always be you. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Hi, this is Danny Coleman, Director of Hazard Management Cayman Islands. We are now in the hurricane season, and for information on how to prepare and stay safe, please visit our website, www.caymanprepared.ky. Some top tips to bear in mind, given that we are still in the midst of COVID-19. Please make sure you have a mask and sanitizer, you have food supplies to last for 3 to 5 days, a portable radio, personal hygiene and sanitation items, and medical supplies, and any other specific items your family may need during a hurricane. Make sure you know where you will shelter in the event of a storm. If you have pets, please make sure provisions are in place for them too, as the majority of shelters will not take pets. Please visit our website for more tips and tricks on www.caymanprepared.ky or call us on 945-4624. Stay safe, Cayman.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thank you very much for joining us. It is open line. Phone lines are there if you want to call and share your thoughts. 949-8037, 949-6990, or toll free with the compliments of Flow at 1-800-534-8255. And if you're watching us on YouTube, well, I check the WhatsApps. Even when you're, talking, I make sure that the message is intended for public consumption. I will do so. And that number, 925-3261. So if you're talking and you're watching and you're saying he's on his phone, well, there are either a number of things. He's either adding to the conversation, he's placing the order for lunch. No, just kidding. He's paying attention to what's going on. What are you doing right now? You got a minute to share your thought with us? Are you at all concerned about where we are? Are you very, very, as they say, well positioned to face whatever challenges, we may sort of have to endure? Might not be able to embrace them, but are we sufficiently grounded to be able to endure what may come down going forward? Our prayers for our continued safety, provision, and protection. It is the hurricane season. I don't necessarily talk about the flu season, but scientists tell us that between the 1st of June and the 30th of November seems to be, at least in this part of the world, when hurricanes are more probable. We've seen in 2004 that there were some in December and January. So Mother Nature will dictate as to what extent she decides to throw us a little curve. Now, we can prepare, and if we do so, as my belated departed uncle used to share, you make provision, you provide. Every week during hurricane season, you buy those non-perishable items and you stock them up. He did that long before there was an HMCI or a hurricane, committee, because they come from a stock that talked about making provision and being prepared. And then the downside is that, for the next 6 months after that, you got a lot of canned food to eat in order to make sure. But there was never a rush when, impending weather. There were never the frustrations, the aggravation, and the stress. They could prepare, make sure the coconuts were off the tree, any possible projectiles were removed, and they could be ready to weather the storm instead of running around making sure that you got this or that or the next thing. What it also allowed them to do is to help those of us who were running around panicking because they had time on their hands. So, I'm very grateful for that advice. I see it my parents to this day. So the counsel of those, like our parents with incredible wisdom, we can borrow from that, benefit from it, will be improved. Well, maybe you may have something that you can share with us. WhatsApp it. Let me check this WhatsApp, 925-3261, or call us on 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. See that boy? You asked about cassava cake and comes to the rescue. Very, very good recipe lady has sent us through, so I can give her a call. Miss Katina, I'll pass them on to you. You can get some, boy. Remember a time when you only got cassava cake at Christmas and New Year's, or if there was a wedding? Well, now you can get it almost all the time. Just like, beef. At least some of us, we only had beef maybe every now and again on Sundays, but certainly Christmas and New Year. It proved that they were healthy choices that they were making deliberately and consciously. It wasn't only because of the availability. No, I've gathered over the years with a collaboration with a good friend of Ray Banka that district by district there were significant variations in how people ate and what they would eat and when they would eat it. Now, as our society is changing, are we able to embrace the changes in a very meaningful, productive way as we look at the foods that are available in our supermarkets, the foods that we prepare in our kitchens, the recipes that we are embracing, that we are sharing, the changes that we may have made to our recipes? Are some of us truly purists and want to ensure that our recipe stays the same? Because, with the greatest respect, if you put in my mind, anyway, green bell pepper in stewed turtle, something wrong with you. You don't put it in conch dinner either. But those that do, and they say it's great. Some of us, it's just a little salt and pepper, and that's all it takes. Now, there are many of us who never knew anything about some foods, but because of travel, because of people who come to our shores, we now have a favorite dish, and it's just wonderful, whether it's a particular curry or otherwise. Change can, make us better. What is your sort of endeavor? 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp, 925-3261. Now, in addition to the Domestic Partnerships Bill that is being debated in our Legislative Assembly, we recognize that there are many individuals who are saying, well, the government is going to be faced with its, choices, and then the consequences is going to impact the populace when the borders are open and people resume their travel. I'll give you just a snippet of a conversation that we had earlier with some individuals who shared, well, wait a second, we opened our borders, but permission to come to our shores is going to be decided by some government authority. Now, that is in a sense akin to a visa system that we seemingly were reluctant to impose in certain places and seem to have had backlash for doing so in others. Now, is it that if someone who is not Caymanian, who owns a property, this was just a hypothetical example in question that was posited, that person makes an application, I would like to come to the country to check on my investment, my property, and they're denied, or is there a right of an expectation that they will be allowed to enter? But if they're denied, what recourse, if any? If a Caymanian says, I know, I just need to get away, for whatever reason and can and can't. Now, those freedoms and restrictions probably by many of us are seen to be not only prudent but have been accepted because they're helpful. But here are the things that many sort of ponder as they sit and have the discussions. Some much more so after, a few bowls of fish tea or a few rounds of dominoes. Others because they have time on their hands, and as they're in their gardens, they're thinking, well, what about this? What about that? I share that to ask the question that many of you have asked, especially following the comments yesterday that one or two of our listeners who talked about food security. A discussion we've had from time to time with members of the Agriculture Society or Agriculture Department, with farmers in general, with just, people who generally looking at things, and they said, well, should we, as a policy countrywide, ensure that every single household is provided with one level of technical assistance, 2 financial assistance, and 3 the actual physical assistance with the actual seedlings and the like to place in their yards certain items. Now, you may or may not like breadfruit, for instance, but if it was useful to bring it from way back when, and we had it here forever, and it's such a wonderful staple, then should that be something that we make sure is there? Or what about other food items that we're growing, not because of the commercial value as a commercial farmer, but the mere fact that we may have $1 billion in our bank account or under a mattress. We have so much of it that we could put it in a fire on a cold night and keep us warm, as was alleged by some that happened in the past when money was flowing freely because of activities elsewhere. But if we have no food to eat, will that $1 or that $1 billion be of any value to us? But if you could go in your side yard or your back garden, or your neighbor can bring over a couple of sticks of cassava that has been harvested at the right time, and you have something to sort of sustain yourself. Well, things that may have become in the past, because of our perceived affluence, no longer necessary because the supermarket shelves are always stocked, or we can pop it from the shelf into our microwave. No longer do we know how to prepare. And I'm not saying this that I do, but highlighting the fact that many of us don't. And is that something that we have lost to our detriment? Not only our unwillingness or inabilities to grow these food items, but equally to prepare them. If someone brought you a fish, say give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, teach him a fish, you feed him for life. But if someone brought you a fish, you didn't know what to do with the fish, how to clean it, how to prepare it. Is it any good to you? So not only should we teach them how to fish, but how to prepare the fish. Do you remove the scales, and if so, how? Do you fillet it off, or is it okay to cook it whole? If you cook it whole, are there particular, considerations, not just the bones and the like that come with it, but maybe, things that you could do to make it go further, to nourish more people? Perhaps simple questions that have been asked and answered, and we already have it all under control, but perhaps simple questions that even the greatest of minds haven't given it a thought because we've got so much money. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. We have open line for the remainder of the program. Ms. Susan, where are we going? Well, she said that headline news is there, so let's take that. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
From Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman, we've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Your 2 p.m. headlines brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile. Saving lives today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have, on North Island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
It is in the best interests of the people of these islands.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. With another 269 COVID-19 tests results reported as of yesterday, Cayman still has no current active cases of COVID-19. The Chief Medical Officer, Dr. John Lee, Monday says all the 269 results were negative. In international news, the world's biggest nuclear fusion project has entered its 5-year assembly phase. After this is finished, the facility will be able to start generating the superhot plasma required for fusion power. Advocates say fusion could be a source of clean, unlimited power that would help tackle the climate crisis. Boris Johnson has warned there are signs of a second wave of coronavirus in Europe as he defended a 14-day quarantine on travelers from Spain. The Prime Minister said the government had to be swift and it would continue to take further action where it is necessary. A leading Hong Kong university has fired its law professor Benny Tai due to a criminal conviction over his role in the 2014 pro-democracy protests. Mr. Tai accused the University of Hong Kong of bowing to pressure from Beijing and said the ruling was the end of academic freedom. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
Your 2 p.m. headlines brought to you by GreenTurtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Green Turtle, modern solutions to get you through the new normal. Download the Green Turtle app now and top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination. Home delivery of laptops, tablets, phones, accessories, and iTunes and major online retailer gift cards. And now, home deliveries of groceries and courier service. Guaranteed delivery within 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit their list of products at greenturtle.ky or download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Your voice, your choice, your radio.
89.9 Radio Cayman helps you to weather the storm during this hurricane season.
One of the most crucial elements of hurricane preparedness is storm awareness. During the season, it is of utmost importance to pay attention to the latest local weather forecasts, as hurricanes do not suddenly form or strike. There are various methods of advanced notification. Utilizing such may be the difference between a favorable outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool before, during, and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your community radio station, Radio Cayman, 89.9 FM.
Country classics.
Well, I was born to coal miner's daughter.
On the road again. They're gonna put me in the movies.
Papa Top again.
Out in the West Texas town of El Paso.
Because you're mine, I walk the line.
Well, I love a
country classics.
Young love, first love.
You never count your money when you're sitting at the table.
If you enjoy classic country music, come hang out with Radio Cayman this Saturday, 3:30 to 6 p.m.
In the Mississippi cotton picking Delta town.
This Saturday afternoon, following American Country Countdown, 3:30 to 6 on Radio Cayman.
Just walk on by. Wait on the corner.
Country classics.
Talk to Dick.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you very, very much for joining us. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. You can also WhatsApp 925-3261. We're hopeful that our programming allows not just an opportunity for you to share information, to be informed, hopefully, engaged, and in a way, be able to somehow be entertained. Sometimes it's better to laugh with someone, but if you have to laugh at them and that brings your blood pressure down, well, so much the better. But together, working hand in hand in a positive, proactive way can make it, that society improves. We're also grateful that through the programming we can offer up a platform to engage our listeners and to provide avenues for our parliamentarians and the like to share a perspective. Now, we want to remind you that when the Legislative Assembly resumes, our sister station, Breeze FM 105.3, is going to continue the programming. Now, watch it on CIG TV if you so choose, that's fine. Audio is portable, so while you're listening and engaged, you can be doing other things and not have to avert your eyes so that you can concentrate on what is it that you should be doing. You can just keep your ears tuned and focus and hear what's happening as you do what is it that you need to be doing. The beauty of radio, it's mobile, it's also versatile. 949-8037. Very grateful that MLA and Councillor Mr. Austin Harris has been able to quickly share with us some sentiments in relation to the later caller previously who relaying some of the sentiments. So Mr. Harris is the representative for the Prospect constituency, and he apologizes, but as you know, he is in the Legislative Assembly, so is unable to call in. But if I can, he just wants to offer up a perspective, sharing that, making some corrections. He emphasizes that what he said was that he had surveyed approximately 636 individuals. I did so electronically. He had a 23%, response. So the 636, that corresponds to 146 people replying. He said that, that is information that he wants to ensure, other the respect for the privacy and to not make public, because he was asking the individuals for their personal opinions and views, and to just provide their personal responses to him directly. It wasn't sort of a public meeting where you're taking a public survey, but private conversation he's having with his constituents, sort of one-on-one, with a perspective that, hey, here's this thing happening, what is it that you think? And so with that, I believe that we need to be positioned to ensure that, especially policymakers are able to be positioned to speak directly to their constituents. And today we know that the convenience with which to share information electronically is so evident. We also know that it can be overly used or even abused, but a wonderful tool when leveraged as such. Now, I think as Ms. Coutinho was sharing, the continuing need for public consultation is very evident, more so than ever, when we think that, again, just as a student, sort of looking at things from the casual observation perspective, as it were. If we look at the individuals we elect, they go into the job having to serve, many, many roles, wear many, many hats simultaneously. We're asking them to be our counselors and social workers. We're asking them to be our referees, not just to write references when we're looking for employment or otherwise. We want them to be our advocates. We're asking them to participate in, our happy and our sad occasions. the question, is it timely that we consider, whether that rule now needs to be revised, and that those people we elect, now we're going to change, presumably at some point, the name from Legislative Assembly to Parliament. I say this respectfully. It's an appropriate change, but perhaps ill-timed, in that if the functioning of the body isn't akin to a parliament, it doesn't have the same level of authority as a parliament, then that name change really isn't worth the paper it's printed on. I'll come back to that, and you may say that's harsh, you may say that's political. Well, so be it. Let's go to the phones, though. Good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Mr. Moderator, good afternoon. It's Quincy Brown. How are you?
Mr. Quincy Brown, a wonderful individual you are. How are you, sir?
Thank you very much. I'm wonderful. Thanks for taking my call. I'm actually calling from Kimmenbrack.
Wonderful place in itself, man.
It's a beautiful place to be. I've always said, Kimmenbrack is a wonderful place to visit. Living here, I personally find a lot of challenges to live here, so that's why I don't live here anymore. I prefer to come and visit, whether that's for a couple of days, a weekend, whatever. But it's always good to come home. I'm wondering, though, the Premier had announced that as of the 19th of July, when other restrictions were starting to be lifted as it relates to COVID-19, the visitation to, what do you call them, residential facilities where you have people housed, whether that's the Pines Retirement Home or the West Bay Retirement Home, right? The Premier did say that people can visit their family members as long as they've had a COVID-19 test done and they're COVID-19 free. So that went into effect as of Sunday, July 19th. So people can visit the Pine Retirement Home if you have loved ones there, You still maintain your social distancing, you still wear your mask, but you're allowed to enter the facility. And as far as I understand it, that's for all residential homes in the Cayman Islands. Now, a lot of times, Kimmenbrackers like to think that they're living in a different country. Sometimes that's to our advantage, sometimes it's to our disadvantage. But we are one jurisdiction. So if the Premier has said that we can now visit our loved ones in these care facilities, it should apply to the Kakernel Home Center here on Kimmenbrack as well, where they have a rule in place. They're not letting anyone visit until August. Well, I'm not going to be here in August, Bobo. I'm here this week, and I want to visit my loved ones at the Blacks Aging Center. And so what I'm saying is, if I have had my COVID-19 test done, I have a letter from the doctor saying that I don't have it, why am I not allowed to enter the Kakernel Community Care Center when the Premier of this country said that we can now visit residential centers? That's my question.
And he's the ultimate lawmaker, as it were, as a political leader in the country, right? Can I ask you, Quincy, if you have time, and if you wish to weigh in, and I ask because you always know public law and private law. I'll tell you what I think, right? I think I love you. I think you're very, very smart. I just admire you, right? And we're gonna, yeah, man. Let me ask you the two things from that perspective, as you just shared. Is it then that as a country, we're 3 islands, that we seem to be willing or seem to be able to employ a practice either on Grand Cayman that is separate and distinct from the practice on the BRAC? And then in that vein, if we look specifically at the restrictions relating to inter-island travel, to movement within the country, so from West Bay to East End or from Grand Cayman to the BRAC, and their restrictions, in your mind, does that somehow run in the face of the constitutional freedoms of movement as enshrined in our Bill of Rights that say, you can move about within the country? We're not talking about going to another jurisdiction, but within the country. Right. How do the intellect that you are, how do you sort of look at that and consider it?
Well, that's a loaded question, Mr. Moderator, but I'll do my best to answer it.
If you wish, sir. If you wish.
Yes, I do wish. I do wish to respond. Now, it's quite interesting because one of our constitutional rights is freedom of movement, particularly if we're not incarcerated and we're not a criminal. We are free to move around this jurisdiction.
Yes, sir.
And even internationally, once we abide by international laws as well, we can move from one country to the next. But there are some contradictions here. because we are one jurisdiction known as the Cayman Islands, a tri-island nation. It's three of us that comprises the Cayman Islands. Yet, it would appear to me that there are certain rules that apply in Grand Cayman that don't apply here. Also, we have members of cabinet making decisions for Cayman Brac to benefit us. An example would be the road cleanup. For those who are unemployed on Grand Cayman, let me tell you something. You don't get the road cleanup until December or during the summer months. And you get 3 weeks maximum during the summer and at Christmas time. That's not the case on Cayman Brac. Our two representatives have secured the funds to see to it that on the island of Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, there is road work right throughout the year. 3 weeks on, 1 week off. 3 weeks on, 1 week off throughout the year. So that's not fair. What about those in Grand Cayman who all walk too? That's one point. Also, as it relates to district admin, Cayman Brac is the only place, listen to me carefully, that has its own government office. Now, the main government office is on Elgin Avenue, the government administration building. But in Cayman Brac, we have our own on Colonel Street, our own district admin. Northside, Easton, Boddentown, not got their own district admin building, but the Brac does, perhaps because we're 90 miles away. And let me tell you something, some powerful decisions are made in that place by the upper echelons of the civil servants who run that place, of course, in consultation with the two representatives. So a lot of things that apply in Grand Cayman sometimes do not hold water here and vice versa. But we must remember that we are one country. So any legislation passed in Georgetown in the LA must apply here as well, I would think.
Right. So even with that, and I cast my mind back to, I don't want to call it a civics class because that would be improper. But there was at least a discussion about constitutional and political issues and the like. And I recall it quite vividly that we're talking about, district administration. And the question was asked, well, why is it that when we do that, we're only thinking of Cayman Brac, yet there are other, at that point, there were political districts on Grand Cayman. So should not district administration be a thing where all of the other political districts are being considered? Now, obviously...
Very good observation, Mr. Dwayne. And the only thing I can figure is because we're separated by water.
All
the other districts are on Grand Cayman, West Bay District, Georgetown District, Northside, Boddentown, East End. We are separated by water. And we even have a district commissioner who reports to the governor in Grand Cayman. That's how it's set up. It must be because we're separated by water. That's the only thing I can figure. But we spend the same CI currency, and we sing the same God Save Our Queen, and we sing Beloved Isle Cayman. We are three islands, but we're one nation. So I just want to find out if you can assist me, perhaps the powers that be are listening, if residents of Grand Cayman can go and visit their loved ones at the Pines Retirement Home in Georgetown once they wear their mask and they still maintain the physical distancing. So in other words, no hugging up, no kissing up of your loved ones. Fair enough. Why is it on Cayman Brac, where I'm spending a few days? I don't live on the Brac. I visit the Brac. That's best for my sanity, I find, that I only come here and visit very briefly. Why is it we cannot go to the Kingston community? I'm sorry, not Kingston, pun intended. Why can't we go to the Colonel Community Care Center here and visit our loved ones? If we have been COVID tested, we are free. Why are they telling us, sorry, you can't come till August? Thanks for taking my call. I'm Quincy Brown.
All right, Quincy. Thanks very much. And do we have a final break, Ms. Susan, or we can talk more? Oh, we got to take that break. I see. I tell you, boy, if I don't pay attention to her, I can't have no excuse now, but I can see her before I could pretend I couldn't hear her. All right. Who's going to be the next caller? Do we have a prize for you? Nope, we don't, but you still have an opportunity to share. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Green Turtle, modern solutions to get you through the new normal. Download the Green Turtle app now and top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination. Home delivery of laptops, tablets, phones, accessories, and iTunes and major online retailer gift cards. And now, home deliveries of groceries and courier service. Guaranteed delivery within 2 hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Visit their list of products at greenturtle.ky or download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
Mommy, have you been taking your medication? No, I think I forgot to pick it up. Your doctor prescribed it for a reason, so you should be taking it regularly. I know, TD. Thanks for the reminder.
If you are elderly or vulnerable and need your prescription delivered to your home, contact the Health Services Authority Pharmacy at 949-8600. Taking your medication when prescribed is important to your health, and your health matters to us. For more information about our pharmacy hours and locations, visit hsa.ky or call 949-8600.
At Cayman National, you can bank from wherever, whenever. Take advantage of 24/7 access to manage accounts, free electronic fund transfers, 20% discount on wire transfers and drafts, and free bill and credit card payments, all while keeping yourself, your loved ones, and the wider Cayman community safe. Sign up for online banking today by submitting your application to cnb@caymannational.com and take advantage of our online banking benefits today. Remember, though socially distant, we are here for you and we are in this together.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
On a daily basis, making it easy to connect with you, our listeners. Add us to WhatsApp today, 925-3261. That's 925-3261.
Radio Cayman.
Send a text or voice note.
Can I send a request, please?
You don't really have to ask us. Just send a request.
This is a shout out to my ex.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon and welcome back. Thanks very much for joining us. And can always rely on Miss Susan to cheer my day, man, making me be reminded of the many blessings. So thanks, if I can say that publicly. She not only does a great job there, but sometimes you hard work. And I say this respectfully. Many of us are at work, sadly, in places where we don't want to be, and some of us only wish that we had a job to go to or the health to do it. I hope and pray that I always have both. And I hope and pray the same for you. And if where you are is not where you want to be, well, you can look at it in two ways. In the country song say, if you can't be with the one you love, love the one you're with. Well, if you're in a job that you don't like, is there a way that you can do two things? Do that job to the best of your ability, with the most enthusiasm and, helpfulness and smile and the best attitude possible. And while you're doing that, can you find a way to say, you know what, my dream job is this. What will it take to get there? And if you can, work towards it. But if you can't, and you show the example, people might say, you know what? I say that because I'm reminded of a friend at his retirement. He got a pen. The pen wasn't really worth much. And I said, man, you must have loved this job. You've probably been doing it for the last 1,000 years. He said, nope, hated it every day. But he had, 5 mouths to feed. He had an obligation. And until he retired, some weeks later, we were chatting. I never knew that he didn't like his job. You never could tell. As a customer, as a co-worker, as a client, as any which way. He did the very best job and everybody thought so. So it shows, You don't have to be false. You just have to be genuine with yourself and understand your responsibilities and accept your commitments and do it, to the best of your ability. Now, it doesn't mean that you let people walk all over you and take advantage of you, but it doesn't mean that you go every day cussing and complaining, as they say. Well, I like what I do, and if I can ever do it any better, share with me. If I don't listen, it doesn't mean that you didn't offer good advice. It just means that I didn't have the wherewithal to accept it. But I try to follow good counsel. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. It's, in my mind, Thursday. But for whatever reason, that's how it feels like today. But we want you to join Mr. Art in the morning for the record. It's a wonderful program. He does an exceptional job facilitating the discussion. So come back in the morning for part of your day to get it off on the right spot. And then join us for Talk Today right after the midday news and midday meditation. But as we get ready to sort of call it a day for the remaining 5 minutes or so left in today's production, what is it that you want to share? What is it that you were thinking of? We've got a couple of comments that were shared with us on our WhatsApp, but they weren't any more than sort of, heads up. Yeah, be mindful of this as we investigate. Now, the caller before the break was asking, the rules that apply on the BRAC, should they not equally apply on Little Cayman and Cayman BRAC and Grand Cayman, and Little Cayman being, 3 islands for us in the same nation, the same country. They are separate, but they're equal. Now, some would immediately say, but wait a minute, when it comes to planning and development, there's a central planning authority on Grand Cayman, but there's a development control board. There are concessions relative to the fees, being significantly reduced for Cayman BRAC and Little Cayman. Some cases non-existent, whether they're for planning applications or work permits. Should there be more? Should there be less? Should there be any at all? Should the rules apply equally across the board because it's one nation? Well, questions as the caller asks. Let's take this call. Good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Sterling Dean. How are you?
Blessed and thankful. How about yourself?
I'm pretty good. I got to give thanks. I woke up to see another day.
Amen to that.
God,
Yes, well.
And I just, on the positive side, I just want people to just have a little more road courtesy.
Thank you.
People are driving. We know that around Christmas time, that's how they behave, but since this place opened back up, people are driving. They will not wait. They do not want to give way.
Mm-hmm.
They do not want to wait if they see you coming right before you get to them, they pull out in the road and if there's a vehicle where you have the right of way that they should stop, they do not stop. You have to be stopping on the other side of the road waiting.
Yep.
So I just want people to be cognizant of others on the road, that they're not the only ones driving, and that they need to be careful, because sometimes people have children and elderly in their vehicles, and God forbid that they should cause some kind of whatever what.
Yep.
So I'm just going to ask you to ask the people to just be more courteous on the road.
Well,
give way when they can, and not be so. Where are we going? This little small island. Where are we going with such a speed?
Yeah, well,
sometimes I wonder, even on my little private road, I hear flying cars. I'm like, where in the world are these people going with this speed?
Yeah, well, So, thank you for sharing that, because I started to question. It seemed to me that the more I would make that appeal, can I say, the more foolish people would drive.
Yeah,
right?
It seems terrible.
and it's one thing that you see on public roads, not in private subdivisions or even roads that should not necessarily be public thoroughfares. You would be put down speed bumps, and yet people seem to race between the speed bumps to see how fast they get from one to the next, and then what they say, jam on brakes, right?
Jam on brakes, or sometimes you hear them buck up.
and
something.
Yeah, man. It would be most unfortunate if there was an accident that either result in injury to the occupants of that vehicle, or some pedestrian or cyclist, or even the occupants of another vehicle. And some of these things could be avoided if people would just be, as you said, a little bit more considerate.
Yeah, and at least try to drive the speed limit now. Why do you need to drive 50 in a little 30-mile zone? Or why do you even need to drive 30 in a little 25-mile zone?
Yeah.
You should even be driving slower, because, right now, there's a few people who work. The island's pretty much open back, and a lot of people have gone back to work. But there's a lot of people who aren't working. So sometimes a little old lady can be cross the road. You need to be careful of that, you won't knock them over. And also, I'm going to ask the people that are working to try to be a little bit kinder to the people who aren't working, because there are a lot of people who aren't working who have families, children, who do not know where their next meal is going to come from.
Yeah, man.
So if they could just be kind and just share. That's the spirit that we had growing up. If you were building a little house, you could have it done in less than a week, because everybody came and put the shoulders to the wheel, grandma put on a pot, and everybody ate and everybody worked.
Share and share alike.
Yeah, you didn't ask for no money.
Yep.
So, right now, I just see that thing that we had there, the kindness and stuff, the hospitality that we had, it's like slowly dwindling away. Within my family, I can see we still have it. Thank God for that, because my mom's always sending me carry something for somebody, and calling me to send me go carry something here for somebody. I'm even within myself, I'm doing that, because the ship don't fall far from the block. But right now, I just wish that people would just be a little bit kinder.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for continuing that example, because if we do that, our parents did it, they instilled that compassion, that kindness, that generosity in us, we can do it. Perhaps others will see our example, and sadly, people will take advantage of those of us who give and give, of our very last. But let's keep giving, huh?
Yeah, we know who to give to. We can see who's in need, and we try to give the people that are in need.
Yeah.
Because sometimes some people say they are in need and they really aren't in need. But God sees and knows, and we know that we do it from our heart. At the end of the day, we're still going to give something, and even if it's a small thing, you'd be surprised how far we that go. My mother always used to say, it is never too small to share.
Yeah. Share and share.
Let's remember that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, Dream. You take care.
You
Have
too.
a good afternoon. God bless these Cayman Islands.
Amen. And thank you very much. And for those of us listening, perhaps we are preaching to the choir, but the caller is right. Have you seen the behaviors on the roads since, everybody is back on the road? Is it a level of frustration? Is it that people are just, I'm not quite sure, but please slow down and be careful. And wouldn't it be nice if you never had a need for traffic police or police in general, because everybody had the common sense and the courtesy, and they were thought about the way we do our things, so that we're cautious, careful, considerate of each other. Not just because there's a stop sign that we should stop, but there are some places where you're driving along and the traffic is flowing, but it's not going, that fast. One, because maybe the speed limit is only 25, 30 miles an hour, but a fellow is pulling out of the parking lot. You just ease off and let the person merge in. Not, that you believe you have a right to push your way into traffic and cause an accident, or worse yet, you're driving along and that person will pull it in front of me, so you accelerate and almost hit the car in front of you to avoid the person from, sort of merging into traffic. A little give and take can go a long ways, but let's not worry about the other person. Let's concern ourselves with the people that we can influence and control, and that is us and our actions. Now, I say this, and if it's improper or said incorrectly, then you can publicly let me know. But sometimes some people need to be publicly chastised and, sort of disciplined, as it were, so that they understand where they may have, gone astray. But sometimes our best way is to do it through our own example. And there are always sadly going to be those who are going to try to profit at your expense, who are going to get ahead by keeping you down. But we can only pray for them, and maybe hopefully one day it'll change. Well, it's another day, and I always enjoy that 2:30 to 3 set, because Miss Susan plays some really good songs. Sometimes even songs that I ask her about that, I don't have to verbalize, because she knows what I like. 949-837 1-800-534-8255. I know Mr. Dolan is going to laugh at that one at some point, but we'll wait until tomorrow for him to tell us about it. Please join Mr. Art in the morning for the record. Come back for Talk Today. A commandant. I always mix it up. Tomorrow he'll tell me correctly. But Mr. Anglin and Mr. Scotland and their, commander and lieutenant commander from the Coast Guard are going to be our guests. Looking forward to that discussion. If they don't mind me saying, man, they're truly, truly awesome gentlemen. And not just tall in stature, but very tall in, their presence of who they are. So I'm honored to be able to have that discussion. Looking very much forward to that. Invite you to join us, because who knows, we might learn something new. Please be safe on the roads and everywhere, and be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Fidelity Bank. For all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Also brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.